Got a friend in Santiago, got a friend in Berlin, got a friend 100 miles away, who's as close as my hand. Distance couldn't keep us apart because we're one man with one heart.
For 30 years, all over the Western world, there has been a search going on. We have been a generation of seekers, people looking for something outside of the system that they're in, people looking to find some sort of purpose. And along with the advancement of technology, new dreams seem to come up in us, and ways of imagining what our future is, what it might be. And then we sort of hit a place where we came to a kind of a halting stop, and our ability to imagine anything further became weakened. We started feeling a kind of an emptiness. Many people who were seekers simply cooled off. Somewhere in the back of their minds, in the bottom of their hearts, there was still something echoing. But the sensation that it was at all possible, that became weaker, like a weakening heartbeat. And then dreams started to change. Instead of dreams about seeking something good, a new world, the collective dream started to reflect this emptiness. And we began to see films, and we began to pay it that had this sort of emptiness in them, that projected a cataclysmic future. Or we look at imagery of a destroyed United States, or the Statue of Liberty in the dust, and all of these sorts of things. And it didn't stop there. It kept growing. It kept becoming darker and more sort of final. And then about, say, 15, 20 years ago, there was this thing, well, a phenomena that I guess you could trace the beginning of it with something like the Celestine prophecies, and people started to pay attention to this 2010, which is supposedly some huge change of consciousness or the end of the world. Now, our ability to imagine things is completely limited by our state. That is, by things that we've experienced in the past, by the forms that are present in us, either that we've inherited, or things that we've seen from art, or from animals, or from anything that we imagine. Any forms that we want to give our future always has to do with qualities in us, and there's a limitation as to what we could possibly imagine. So now we're all really caught up in this kind of downward trend, a kind of countdown to the year 2010, 12. Good grief, we're already there. Sorry, too late. 2012, which is the end of the Mayan calendar. That's where the guys who were building the calendar said, I'm going to knock off now. And this is full of all kinds of meaning. And we see these kind of filmic creations of what we can expect and where we are. Now, in this collection here, this is something from the web, and it represents the kind of imagination that we have now. And so many governments and so many people all around the world, they see a dramatic increase in all of these things that are really terrible. Our attention is on this. Our sensation of our own weakness and inability to change these things. That nature itself seems to be reacting against us. That all that we really can expect is more of this. Unless, as some people, the 50% of those who look at 2012 hold, this is going to be a shift in consciousness. And yet when you look at these kinds of clips that are all over the web, you don't see images, ideas, or anything that has to do with any kind of shift of consciousness. You see pictures of, if on the positive side, you'll see pictures of angels and space aliens and beautiful words. But there is no ability to envision really what that might be. Always, it's clothed in our current state, in where we are before the shift. Now obviously, any of these things that it's speaking about can't possibly depict a shift in consciousness. It has to be made out of something else. What's beautiful about this is that what everybody feels is correct. We are undergoing some kind of a change, but it's a natural change. It has something to do with a higher aspect of nature, but it's natural all the same. It's not something supernatural. It's not something that came out of nowhere. It is an evolutionary point, a point of transition from one kind of a quality that people call a certain kind of consciousness. We call that, maybe in Kabbalah you might call that no consciousness, to another kind of consciousness. But what is that? It's another kind of quality. It's not made up of events, whether they're good or bad, but something obviously above events, something that determines events. There is something, some huge change that all of humanity is going to go through, but it's not at all of the low order of simply physical things like a polar shift, or flares on the sun, or any of these nightmares that we imagine for ourselves, or the only way that we can clothe the idea of change, because we can't imagine what it is that we need to change. We feel the change coming. We know that we've used up a certain something. We may frame it in the idea that, well, we've used up the earth and we've used up our resources. But that's not it. There's something at a much deeper level that is no longer useful to us, and that is a certain quality within us. So yes, there is a change that's coming, but the change has to do with moving from one level of nature to a higher level of nature. And we have to find a way to make that bridge. There is a way to do it, and there is a way to discover that it's not the end, and the only fire that really exists is a fire inside of us, a burning, to actually make this transition. Now, we're not going to make these types of changes unless we feel this sensation of nature pushing us, and unless we hear the people around us agreeing to all of this. Just in time for the big party comes a means for humanity to be able to actually make this transition to another way of being. And up until now, this means of all of us together being able to move to a higher level of consciousness, or let's just call it a higher engagement with our actual nature. Up until now, it's been hidden. But we think of it as a story of hidden in history. But it's actually something hidden in us until we needed it. And what is that? Up until now, humanity in general, those who were interested in the Book of the Zohar, didn't understand what it was for. There were all kinds of imaginings about what it is. Phantasmagorical things about angels, about the key to the universe and all those things. And while it actually does contain the deepest knowledge about natural science at a lower level, and is completely accurate about many of the things that it describes that science now has only caught up with, that's not the issue. That's not the point. The point is that it talks about two levels of nature and how a person can move from the lower to the higher. What it is that a person has to do. It represents an entire system. But the key to this system and the revelation of it, when it stopped being hidden like this, it stopped being hidden around 1995 when the need in humanity began to grow in this direction. Wasn't that strong in 1995? Today, it's beating like a huge drum. Today, everybody feels that we're up against it. We're not sure what we're up against. And even though it says here in this book, the Zohar, which is printed by by B'nai Baruch's publishing company, collection of Zohar with some commentary by Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag and Dr. Lightman, excuse me. It says here that the book of the Zohar is the most mysterious and at the same time the most significant book of the wisdom of Kabbalah. In recent years, it's become increasingly clear that although the book of Zohar was written 18 centuries ago, it was actually written for our time. Yehuda Ashlag, Bala Salam, opened it to us and he rekindled that what has long been forgotten from our hearts. From the dawn of humanity, unique individuals climbed the spiritual ladder and they achieved the highest level of bonding with the upper force, the Creator. We call those people Kabbalists. And through this bonding, they came to understand, and this is the important point, that the whole of reality from the highest spiritual worlds, what we call spiritual, what we like to call spiritual, down to our world, is founded on love and bestowal. They realized that there is nothing in the world except for this force. Really? There's nothing in the world except for this force? Why does it look like those pictures in that video? And that everything that happens in reality was made only to bring humanity to permanent existence in this sensation. We're undergoing a change. The change is the change between the external aspects of life, externality, the physicality, the connection to it, the sense that we actually somehow are disconnected and can hide from each other in some place, to internality, in which my thought, an individual's thought, determines the kind of world that exists. When Baal Salam says that the world exists only out of love, that's the only force that exists, he's talking about a natural fact. The fact is that we live in a reality unlike the way that we perceive it. In an inclusive reality, in a huge reality made of connections of love. That's the actual reality. Where we are now, this dream with the countdown to destruction, that's the way that we understand that we are now emerging into this new place. But we don't have anything other than the book of Zohar that can actually take us from this world of perception, how we perceive this world, to a very different world of perception. So the people who have been who are studying in the Learning Center are now beginning to learn about this book. That is, how we approach this book, how a person can actually make this bridge from this existence to another world and another way of being that we don't feel now. There is a transitional point, but it's not made out of the things that we imagine that it is. And as I don't think we're really imagining much about it. There is a way that a person can approach other people, their connection with other people, and put themselves into they can already put themselves into the system of this future state by learning what is in the Zohar, because the process of even listening to the Zohar in connection with other people under the right guidance aimed only at this internality, this creates a change that allows us to function not just within our reason and in the forms, the old forms that we have, from which we can only imagine destruction. This is not a real destruction. It's the end of the use of the ego. It's the end of the use of disconnection, of externality, of seeing everything as though it was all physical and we were all separated. But in order to make the bridge to that other world, we have to do it with other people, and we have to approach this bridge by learning something about the system by which the entirety of nature and the law of nature functions according to this love. This doesn't happen through an intellectual process. It happens through a connective process. It happens by acknowledging our reason, but functioning in a place not limited by that. And the Zohar is really that system as though it were a book. It's not a book. We live in a book. The entire system that we live in is a law, is a single law, and laws derived from that, all having to do with how much love or lack of love, how much giving and how much taking. And the only way that we're going to move to this higher consciousness is by learning how that system works and crossing that bridge together. That's what the Zohar's for. And that's why it's appearing now, only because there's a need. It doesn't really matter what it's called, although it means radiance. In other words, it's like a light that shines from the highest possible state called Ein Sof, or it's like a world of no end, meaning a world in which there is no end to things in terms of their connection. There's no death in the sense of how we have physicalized and partitioned our existence through the use of our ego. This is not mysticism. It's not science fiction. It's science. It's nature, basically, as we extend it on a continuum to a higher place. We're not going to get there simply by, nature will grab me and take me. We're going to get there by becoming like nature, by injecting ourselves into the system and learning how to relate with each other with this book. It's written in a very special way. It's not written so that you can understand it in your brain. You can only understand it in your heart. And it takes training. It takes training, but eventually it takes us to the other side of this bridge. What we need to understand about it is that the preparation really consists of some preparatory material that explains what not to bring to the engagement with this system, what not to expect, the tools not to use as we cross this bridge together. And there are introductions to the Zohar, a number of them, that sort of help us arrange ourselves and become prepared to actually undergo this change and to experience life in the way that we will be experiencing it once we reach the other side of the bridge. And this is the bridge. And that place is already shining for us, is already brilliant, is already kind of calling us. But we have to respond to it, or else we're going to feel it in a very opposite way. This quality of great encompassing love is what you can call above. Something greater than this world, something that wants to, hatch us out of this little egg and bring us to a place of encompassing love. And that's what above is. But it depends on an action from us.
Everything comes from above, except our love. And everything depends on it, depends on it, depends on it. Everything comes from above, except our love. And everything depends on me, depends on me, depends on me. We're operating from above, a complete machine. The only thing that happens is that it's all concealed. There is no free action. We're in a system. You can't see it, but first you've got to be in one. Everything comes from above, except our love. And everything depends on this, depends on it, depends on it. Everything comes from above, except our love. And everything depends on me, depends on me, depends on me. I can't live like I do. I need an answer. Honey and money don't do it for me. Take some medication, even go on a vacation. But where is the place where I am free? One does much, one does little. As long as you aim your heart at the middle. This must be some kind of higher guidance. It's a time of realization. It's our liberation. Everything comes from above, except our love. And everything depends on this, depends on it, depends on it. Everything comes from above, except our love. And everything depends on it, depends on me, depends on me. Everything comes from above, except our love. And everything depends on it, depends on it, depends on it. Everything comes from above, except our love. And everything depends on it, depends on it, depends on it.
We have some questions from viewers and from Learning Center students. There's a question here from David from Boca Raton, Florida. When should someone start reading the Zohar? If I've taken the Learning Center courses through the intermediate course, but I still don't really understand much of what the instructors explain, can I read the Zohar? Should I wait until I have a better grasp of the other materials first? David, I think from the question you're asking that you completed the course before the Spring 2010 course, which is now beginning to study preparation for the Zohar. So, and I think that because you're talking about reading the Zohar. When in fact we don't read the Zohar, we enter into a Zohar lesson, and it doesn't matter really what you understand. It matters what we want in that. It matters what we're aimed at in it. And the study that you did prior to this is actually a preparation to use this most important book for this generation. That is, the process of what we learn in Kabbalah during the preparatory stages that prepare a person to be a student, and a student in the sense of like a citizen of existence, not like a student in a university, but somebody capable of entering maturity in life. These things prepare us because we unlearn certain things. It doesn't matter if you grasp the material on a deep level. What matters is that certain things happen in a person, and then they become prepared. Now, you can go ahead and study as much as you want in the Zohar lessons, which are available. If you go to Kabbalah.info, you'll see that in the side panel here, there's a tab that says Zohar, and there's all kinds of explanations about the Zohar, from the academic and historical aspect, stuff about the preparatory materials, who is it for, and all of that stuff. But also, it talks about how to get to the lesson and how often the lessons happen. Zohar lessons, I believe there are 11 lessons a week in the morning lesson. So why don't you attend some of those? Watch it with other people in the world, Klee. Listen to Dr. Lightman about how to aim yourself at it, and take everything that you've learned, and most of all, take the desire that you've had in the beginning, that you hold on to, and bring that into it, and you'll see what that world is made out of, and what it really requires, what type of deep change it requires. That deep change, you see, when we make the changes on the outside and we think that it's got to do with our how smart we are or what we remember, nothing sticks. It doesn't hold. The world doesn't change. I don't change. Nothing changes. The only thing that alters anything is if in that place I truly want something else. I truly want something else. I truly want that connection. I truly want to feel something that I don't yet have in me, and I want to feel it on behalf of everybody who's crossing this bridge with me. That sticks. That ultimately becomes permanent. Whereas any other thing that we do based on what we know or what we think or how smart we are or how talented we are or any of those things, they all die, as our dream of what's happening to this world testifies to. Another question. Sarah from Chicago. Why is the Zohar so special? How does it have special properties? What's special about it is that it is the expression of a desire, a complete, corrected desire that is the beating heart, so to speak, of that upper world of no end, that Ein Sof, that place that we actually come from. It was created by 10 men, all representing, I'm talking about, men is not the important thing, but 10 people connecting to each other, representing the 10 aspects of how nature creates reality. And each one of those aspects also reflect their perfect relationship in giving, in bestowal, to each other one. So the thoughts that are in the book are from the highest level, and when a person matches not their, I mean the intentions in the book, not the thoughts. When a person starts to match their intention to this book, that's when things happen. And that's the property that it has that is so beautiful and spectacular. That's why it represents the actual system of the general law of the universe. It's not that you scan it and then it has some kind of magical properties. If it's magical, you don't need to do anything with it. Stick it on your shelf, It'll do magic. But that's not what it is. Its special property is the quality that it enables you to reach. Charlie from Washington, D.C. Hi, Charlie. The Zohar is very confusing. I don't understand a word of it. How can I get to the point where it makes sense? Turn around and go backwards. Before you started studying, it probably made sense. You had an idea about it. But you're lucky if it doesn't make any sense to you and you still want to work on it, because eventually what happens is you start to notice what else is there besides our sense, our logic. You don't abandon logic, you just see what else is there. And Denise from Boston, the introduction to the Zohar seems to have a practical, logical, and intellectual feel to it, yet we hear that the book of Zohar is not written this way at all, and it's difficult, if not impossible, to comprehend intellectually. That's right. Why then is the introduction written this way? Why was it intended to prepare us for the study of Zohar? Denise is asking about the introduction to the book of Zohar. There are a number of those introductions written by Bala Salam. They are telling us basically what not to pack on this trip. They're telling us what you don't need to cross that bridge, and they're telling you that there is. We start off in our logic, we start off in our ego, and we begin a kind of an arc, a continuum, which starts in those preparatory books for the Zohar, and a person must read those, otherwise they will be bringing all kinds of assumptions into the work with this book that will prevent them from achieving anything at all. It's like you've got to read the manual. It's not magic. It's a thing about you're going to change something about your relationship to nature, but it's really something. That quality of egoism and all that, that's a real thing. You can get a handle on it. You can begin to see it from the outside, and you've got to understand that when you're out of it and in connection with others, there's something you can do with it. That the events that happen to a person, they're meant for us to use. There's a thing called coupling while striking. In other words, it seems like something's coming at us, and yet we still use that as a stepping stone to become like the thing that brought us that, so that we could rise above it. I'm not going to go into it because I'll just confuse you even further. But it starts in our basic understanding, and the continuum follows into a higher level of life, which has to do with love and bestowal. Let's let Dr. Lightman have the last word on the Zohar here.
The Zohar is like, let's say there's some letter that someone very dear to you, very close to you, wrote to you, and that really fills you up. Well, I'm speechless. It's very personal, very intimate, it's like every time you, let's say, are in some, perhaps, going through different situations, or having different thoughts, or doing different actions, when you then go back to the Zohar, you feel that it's, well, enlivening you, reviving you, fulfilling you, calms you down, kind of soothing you, hugging you, enveloping you. It's like some sort of, how to put it, it's the expression of a soul that is in adhesion with the Creator. If a person receives some small feeling, emotion towards spirituality, then he feels what it is. He can't do without it. For him, it's like some sort of an inner message. It's like water for a thirsty soul.
So, for 30 years, all across the Western world, people have been seeking something. They've been impelled towards making a connection with something greater. And we're now standing at the edge of the end of a form of development. We can't see beyond that cliff. It's as though there's nothing there. And the Zohar tells us that it seems as though there's nothing there because the quality of love that is spirituality does not exist in our nature as determined by the kind of desires that we have now. And that applies to all of humanity. And this is why it is a huge worldwide inner sensation. Why we feel that we've come to the end of things, why we're dreaming of disaster. But it's not disaster. It's an opportunity. That the story that we tell ourselves about our individual lives and what life is and where it takes place outside, that this is not so. But then what is so? That's why the Zohar needs to be there, and that's why people can now actually fulfill this thing, this dream of finding what we like to call spiritual, but it really is, frankly, just finding how nature works and what our place is in it. We're about to go into the morning lesson. Let's think about these thoughts that have been sort of rattling around our heads for the last 45 minutes, and let's go into it together as we watch this.